I want to start this video with a quick insight into why I am building these windows. The workshop in which you have seen me working so far on my projects is placed in this approximately 200 years old house that my parents own. While tight on budget, we finally managed to start renovating it in 2024. Before all this, we had to decide between demolishing it and rebuilding another one, or keeping it with all the headaches that will most certainly come while renovating it. We finally decided to keep it, and now I am responsible for all the joinery. For the start, I am building 4 arched windows which will be mounted on the front side of the house. They will be made out of oak laminates. Basically, I am sandwiching 3 layers of wood, alternating the fiber, and this will hopefully improve the stability of the wood over time. The downside of this process is that it's time consuming, but the good part is that I can also use wood with defects in between the layers. I've got this lumber from a local who has kept it in its attic for a bunch of years, and it gets a plus for being perfectly dry. Unfortunately, whoever milled this lumber hasn't done a great job, and I have to remove lots of material until I get the desired thickness. I have to say I wish I had moved as fast as I am doing in the video. Probably I would have finished the windows in a matter of days instead of months. All this combined took me more than 2 months, and I didn't work only on the windows. I also had to do some construction work on the facade, where with my father and the help of a hard-working friend, we had to replaster a big portion of it. I want to lay all the lumber on my workbench just to show you how much I had to deal with. And since my poking fingers magic doesn't work, I must rely on the manual labor to assemble everything. I am going to start with the arch template, which I'm making from plywood. I start by marking the board in the corners and driving some nails where a strip of wood will be placed and bent to form an arch. Then I quickly realized that this was not a great idea. If you can notice, only the top is arched, and moving to the sides, things start to get a little too straight for my liking. So I had to put together 3 pieces of strips, drill a hole on one end, and put it on a rod attached to my router, which will spin freely. On the other end, I attached a pencil with some tape, resulting in a compass as big as my workshop. With a few tweaks, I aligned the pencil with the marks, and I managed to draw a perfect arch. Using the template, I am drawing a line along the piece and cutting it in half. This way I am left with 2 pieces which will be glued one on top of another. This method helps me to save some material. I am only doing this for 2 of the pieces. The third one will be made from one piece and it will be facing the exterior of the window. These leftovers will be a great help when mounting the windows. After the glue dried, I ran all the pieces through the planer only to even the surface. With some double-sided tape, I secure the template on the piece and get the pieces to their final shape on my router. I didn't have the carbide insert router bit at the time of building these windows, so I had to rely on this tiny flush trim bit, which worked like a champ. For the glue up, I am using this glue applicator from Rockler, not sponsored by the way, and it helps me to apply glue in no time. It seems to make glue up more enjoyable compared to using a strip of wood. With the help of the mighty pipe clamps, I glued the pieces nice and tight. I could just glue multiple pieces at once, but I was afraid not to get them out of whack while doing so. So I went with a few at once and paid extra attention to glue them at the same level. I continued with gluing up the bottom parts of the frame, followed by the middle parts, where I had to use some salt so the things wouldn't go their way. Now I know that salt might affect the performance of the glue, but in this case I have to use what I have at hand. After that, I continued with the lateral parts and the bottom parts that form the window sashes, where I had to glue them with an overlap in order to create the rebate of the sashes. I also have less material to remove by doing so. And last but not least, the parts that will come on the bottom of the sashes, those being the lower rails. I will save the upper curved rails for later. After the glue cured, I started with the profile of the frame, on which I had to first make the groove in which the weather sealing will go, followed by cutting the excess material from the rebate, finishing them on my router table, where I realized that I should have cut more with the table saw so I don't have to abuse my router so much. Things get a bit tricky for the curved upper parts of the frame, where I had to start by removing the excess material on my router table. After I finished the routing, I had to stick the round leftovers together on my table saw in order to help me create the groove for the weather strip. All the parts of the frame are ready for assembly, but not before I cut them for the final length and lay them on my workbench so I can check if everything will go as planned. I am starting by cutting at an angle the lateral parts of the frame where the upper curved part will sit, and with the same angle in mind, I taped a strip of plywood on my mortising machine where the workpiece will sit. Beneath the workpiece, I placed a 1 cm thick piece of plywood, which is the exact diameter of the carbide bit I am using for making the joints. Why I am doing this, you may ask? Because for the joinery I am using finger joints or box joints, and this 1 cm thick piece of plywood acts exactly like that pin on the jigs used to make box joints, and I am only using it for the lateral parts. The upper and bottom parts will be placed directly on the table. Basically, at every second centimeter I make a slot in which the finger of the other part will fit. It will make sense soon. I am dry fitting them to make sure everything goes together nicely, and I am measuring and cutting the exact length of the middle part, which I will join using shop-made dominoes. I could have joined this part by also using finger joints, but it's way faster making a few slots. All the strength of the frame is in the corners, and I am sure that's enough. I am using PU glue for the middle part because once it cures it will increase in volume and it will cover all those gaps inside the joint. At the same time it will offer some extra strength, probably. And for the finger joints I am going with PVA glue, which I kind of exaggerated with the amount I applied. What can I say? The more the merrier. For the last step, I check if everything is square and set it alongside the other 3 frames, which I glued off camera. Next on the list are the sashes. The first step is to make 2 templates for the top rails, respecting the exact radius of the arch template I made previously. Basically, I am making templates with a template. I marked the pieces using the template, and with the jigsaw I cut all the excess material, ending up with a bunch of wedges. After that, everything was a matter of cutting on the router table. I first glued up 2 of the boards that go inside the frame, and the third bigger one I glued up overlapping the other 2. Where you probably guessed it, the weather sealer will sit. There is a lot of repetitive work in this project. After I got the boards to the exact thickness, I started making the exact profile I've done on the frame, and on the other side, more exactly the interior face of the sash, I will make a rebate where the glass sealer will sit and at the same time where the glass will be placed. You'll see soon what I am talking about. In the meantime, I got a bigger router bit for rebates, which made things sound and vibrate like crazy, but I managed to do the cuts slightly faster. For this joint I used an 8mm carbide bit, and I used the same method as I did when I made the frames. Although not perfect, I am sure that they will offer plenty of strength in holding the weight of the glass. I am also making a small chamfer on these edges where I will apply some caulking before I paint them. This will offer extra protection against water. Everything went nice and tight in its place, and it's time to glue them together. Guess who's gonna swear when cleaning all this mess? The only way to check if they were square was on the bottom, but then I remembered that the frames were done and that I could check and adjust the sash right on them. I must have 5mm of clearance between the sash and the frame. The second part of this video, which will be the final part, will be ready as soon as I'm done editing, hopefully in a couple of weeks from now, or perhaps sooner, where I will mount all the hardware, weather sealers, paint them and finally mounting them. Till then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. If you are new here, maybe you'll consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.